This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com.
It is what it is. Also, another question from Josh Coon. He says, WWE brought back ECW as a third brand. Why does Arn think WWE never brought back WCW as a brand? Jim Ross actually writes about that a little bit in his new book that's going to be out later this month at jrsbbq.com, where he was actually recruiting a whole talent roster for a second show that was going to be on TNN, for WCW. But then, the match you did commentary on and, wherever town it was, with, Buff Bagwell, Spokane, Washington, Buff Bagwell, Booker T, Vince immediately called an audible in the wee hours of the morning right afterwards, and WCW's reboot was dead. Hypothetically, do you think it could have worked?
Not with who they hired as the WCW crew.
Right.
If you look at who they got Booker T, correct?
Right.
They got Bill DeMott. They got the power plant guys, the kids who had no experience. You know, there were some that had potential, the Chuck Palombos, etc., that had potential, but they were just getting started. They were power plant guys. All of the stars, and you got the producers. You got Fit Finley, myself, Dean Malenko. You know, you got that few guys. But I mean, we weren't. You know, Fit could still wrestle. Dean and myself, no. So what you were getting was a shell of the WCW company. All the top guys were going to ride out their contracts, had been sent home, were getting paid to sit home, still had a year and a half left on their contract. They weren't going to throw that money away. So what you got was a shell of the former WCW roster coming across. And, you know, you can't, if you did an invasion or you did another show, that's exactly what you would have seen. People would have been sitting there on their duff at home. Oh, okay. Here's the WCW back on the air. Who are these guys? And when they start going, I don't know these guys, you're in trouble.
Donnie G wants to know, do you think the production value of the WWF helped put Crockett out of business in the end, or was it something else that fans couldn't see?
Well, no, their production values were fantastic from day one. I mean, the clarity of their picture was on that show is the one thing. It was the star of the show. Before you ever saw a match, you would look at the clarity of the picture and just go, wow. I mean, that was HD before HD. No, Jim Crockett put himself out of business. You know, it goes back to taking care of the guys that got them where they were in a position to compete with WWF. And, you know, when they made the mistake of not taking care of myself and Blanchard and a few other key players and taking care of that foundation, you know, they would still be in business. I firmly believe that. I mean, maybe it may be pompous or egotistical, but when Tully and I left, we broke up a group of guys that was the nucleus, a major part of the nucleus, along with the Midnight Express and Cornette, of the heels of a fantastic company. And you had guys that could produce on a nightly basis. And when you let that group disintegrate, it was the beginning of the end for Jim Crockett Promotions. And that was, you know, if you look back in history, had we stayed and you probably, you know, I don't know if they would have sold to Turner or not, who knows? But I just think things would have been different.
Rob writes in, what are your thoughts on the silly over the top rope disqualification rule? Of course, he's talking about in the Bill Watts era.
Well, you know, Bill was used to doing business a certain way, and he thought, you know, he could walk in and recreate some scenarios and some rules that probably worked 10 years earlier. And what went along with those over the top rope rule is he took the pads away from the floor. That was the added extra. So if you threw a guy over the top rope, he was going to be landing on the cement. Well, that's okay if you're in control of yourself going over the top rope, landing on the cement. Some guys weren't very skilled at that. Some guys weren't skilled getting thrown through the ropes. So what became just part of a storyline and one of the rules and one of the perils that might happen started to happen. People were getting hurt landing out there. The condensation on the concrete floor in some arenas, in the summer, the humidity, all that stuff, people spilling beers, spilling soft drinks. And now you got a real life hazard. So that was one of the things, that he put in place that kind of blew up in our face.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.